Hello and welcome, everyone. We're going to start off with the product webinar of February 2022. This is the first product webinar of the year. So I hope that everyone has been able to join and has taken their seat. So let's get started, shall we? First off, we've got today's hosts. Well, hello. First, I am going to be the main host. My name is Oni van Eyck. Then we also have Dennis de Boer. He is the product owner of the Actions team. He's going to be talking about making the new Actions environment ready for public use. The second, the second product owner that we have speaking is going to be Reinier van Altena. He is the product owner of the templating team, and he is going to talk about a dynamic questionnaire and case management template that the team is working on. We also have Dusty Rowe, the product marketer. Dusty will be discussing the private data mode, the email and back office updates from the onboarding outlaw team. Then we have Anton van den Berg, the product owner of the page builder segment. Anton will be talking about loading and managing data, making partials dynamic to increase the speed of development in the page builder. And after that, we also have Manouk van Gerwen, the product owner from the data team. She's going to be talking about new roles and model permissions and the new data model IDE for new Bettyblocks applications. And last but not least, we have Jordi Krom, the product owner from Control Cloud. And Jordi Krom is going to be talking about the platform single sign-on and role-based access control. So the goal of this webinar is, well, to give you all self-building customers, partners, developers, internal colleagues, and other attendees an insight in the current product development. So keep a good eye on what our hosts and all the product owners, everyone has to tell, and see whatever you seem valid for your new applications. And we've just slightly adjusted the setup compared to last time, because the last time we had a lot of speakers, then we had a little break, and then all those speakers went to have a talk again about what they have been working on and then what they're going to work on. This time, we're going to combine it to see what a product owner is working on and what the product owner is going to work on. So if you have any questions regarding the topics that the hosts are going to be talking about, please feel free to add them or to ask them in the chat. Questions will be answered at the end of each host sections. We're going to be handling a max of 2 questions live per segment, and other questions will be answered in the chat. If a question is a bit too advanced for us to immediately answer, or if it's going to take a longer time, then we'll make sure to schedule a one-on-one with you. And as a last reminder, the webinar will be recorded. So just so you know, if you want to see something back, or if you have a question, or if you didn't really catch something that we were talking about, you will have the opportunity to rewatch it. So let's go to our first team. This is the templating team, and Reinier, I'd like to give you the microphone.
Thank you, Odin. Yes, so today we're going to talk about the templates and what have we been working on in the past couple of weeks. That's the dynamic questionnaire. So this is a template that allows you to set up a whole dynamic questionnaire throughout with the use of the front end of Bettyblocks. And you'll be able to send out the questionnaire to different users who then can answer the questions in the questionnaire. And those can be both anonymous users, but also registered users. That is a choice that you can make in a dynamic questionnaire as well. And the other one we worked on is the case management application. So with that template, you can create a case management system by setting up a flow that assessors need to go through to manage the case, or to complete the case, so to speak, that somebody has sent in. Of course, of both, we have a little demo, so hopefully that will make more sense than what I just tried to explain to you. So let's jump into the demo straight away. So here we have the dynamic questionnaire. So in a dynamic questionnaire, it allows you to quickly set up a questionnaire. So you can create a new questionnaire by just clicking here on Create Questionnaire. And as you can see here, it automatically gives your questionnaire a version. So it always starts with the version 1.0, so that if you make a change later, it will automatically up the version to 1.1 or 1.2 at some point, so that when somebody answers the questions, you can also see which version they actually answered at some point, so that if you add some questions later on or remove some questions, you know exactly if somebody has answered certain questions or not, because of the versioning. So you can give the name here, description, and then here you can set up your questionnaire itself. So it's divided into two different things, questions and sections. So you can add more questions and you can also add more sections to it. So if, for example, I would like to add more sections to it, I can click here on Add Section, and it will add a section here, and I can add questions here now as well to this specific section. So a section will be a different step basically into your questionnaire. Let me show you a questionnaire that has already been set up, so that will make this a little bit easier to understand. So let me grab this one, for example. So this one has already been created. It's already at version 1.6 here, as you can see. You can see here that some questions have been answered by anonymous users, but in version 1.5. I can also view the questionnaire. So this is the actual questionnaire, how it has been set up. So you can see here the first question with the name, and this is a text, so there's no extra options here needed. But for example, with a multiple choice here, a radio group in this case, you can set up all the options. And you can also set up, if you make the choice of that answer, what needs to happen. So in this case, it will hide question 3. So as you can see, these don't have interaction, so you can set it up in any way that you would like for your questions. So if I click here on edit, for example, we can also see, we can also edit all of this here. So for example, I can say if it's sunny, for example, here, I can say that question 4, for example, needs to hide or it needs to show. You can make that choice for every option that you have. You can even make multiple choices with that, because with the plus here, you can add an extra option here to it, so it will have multiple interactions here as well. There's a little question mark here that explains what the interactions actually do. We're trying to add a little bit more of that here, because right now you don't see those. We're still working on it, completing the last bits. We're trying to put as much information on the page so you don't get lost that easily. Yeah, and then you can invite users to it. So you can invite users per email, or you can just use a anonymous link that you can send to people and people can fill it in, but you can't track which people have filled it in and which haven't, because it will be anonymous. But you can also invite people by email, and then you can actually track who has answered the questions and who hasn't. So yeah, that's it for the dynamic questionnaire. And then we have the case management application, which allows users to create a case. And those cases are based on pages that have already been created in the page builder itself. But eventually you can also, for example, add more options to it as well. So all the options that you see here on the left, which are part of the case of this case, for example, you can make changes to those here in this app as well to add more functionality to it. So basically you build them in the page builder, but users can then set up their own flow and their own order of that flow in the page builder itself, in the application itself, without having to rebuild those pages. So it makes it very easy for people to reuse pages and to create their own flow with the case management system. So this one is just a simple one where you can manage a case. So once it gets in, you need to assign an assessor here, somebody who will assess this case. So you can assign somebody here, like me, for example. And once you save this, it automatically should take you to the next step here. So it takes you to the next step, and then here you can make a decision whether it's right or wrong, for example, if it's right or wrong. And once you do that, it will take you to the next step until you go to the end, where you can have a manager check the whole thing as well. So each step has some logic behind it, which you just build into the actions itself. And also all cases have possibilities for uploading documents, also communication, because there is also people who can just file cases, can just view those cases. They can't edit anything after they file them. They might be able to upload some more documents, but that's usually it. But they can communicate through this communication with the person who is assessing their case. And you also have the option to make an internal post, or to post it publicly so that the other person can see it as well. And also with all cases, the history is being tracked of all the changes that you've made while making changes to the case. All right, so that's it for the case management in a nutshell. There is more to it, but to keep this short and to the point, I'm going to in every nitty-gritty here. So what are the upcoming app templates? So the two that you just seen, they're not live yet. They will be live in the next week. So a little bit more patience. We need to dot a couple of I's here and there, and then they'll be live. So that's probably going to be somewhere next week. So the next ones that are coming up are going to be our KYC, Know Your Customer template. It will be a template that will allow users to go through a KYC. So they need to upload some documents there. Those documents need to be checked. That's where we'll build an additional flow where a backend user, so to speak, can check all the documents, all the questions that have been answered by the person who did the KYC as well, to see if they'll be allowed to be a customer, for example. So that's the next one that we're going to work on together with an NDA generator. That will be an app that allows you to generate an NDA based on certain conditions, and it will generate a PDF after that, which then can be sent over or signed by somebody. So that one will be pretty straightforward. We're aiming to deliver these before the next webinar that we're going to have. And yeah, that's it for all the templates right now. Did we get any questions in the meantime?
No, there have been no questions. So Anton can continue with the page builder segment.
Yes, thank you. Right, so today I will be telling you what features we've been adding to the page builder and the features we are going to work on. So let's dive right in it. We have been working on the way that you can load in data within the page builder. More specifically, we are focusing on being able to load in relational data and combining this into one query, which I will show you in a second. And we have also made some additions to the filters of our data components so that you can check if a certain property has a value and only return the data of that when it's having a value. So let me show you how that works within the application. So over here, I have set up two identical lists. And one of these lists has a data list. And here you can see that I have selected a relational model. So this is actually the new feature that we have added to this, where you can go one step further from your model and select the relational model. So you will still load in these people. The people that are related to this model. And that model is the parent data container where I load in this nationality. And on the right side, I have a similar setup except that this is using not a relational model, but it is set up with a filter that checks which ID is set. So the difference is that this is being set via the filter, and on the left side, you can set it via the relational model. And what this looks like when we check this in the runtime and I relive my application, well, you can see on the right side that it's showing a loading indicator for the list, and on the left side it is not. Might be hard to see right now, but that is what's happening. And the advantages of this are that you can have less timeouts, for instance, and you have more faster queries basically, and improve the speed within the runtime of your app. Another thing that we have worked on regarding data is that we have given the possibility to alias your nested models. So a lot of times when you were working in your application, you were using the same model and nesting those data containers or data lists within each other. And it was not clear which model you should select in the property or model selector. So what we added is the possibility to fill in an additional title on those data components, and those will be displayed in the selectors that you can see here. And what this looks like in the application. Let me move something for a sec. So here's the same application as I just displayed in the presentation. So here you can see that there's a nice subtitle below it, which shows more context of which data is being used there. And if I select my data table in this case, or let's go to my web user, you can rename this component here. So let's just call it user for now. And when I go back and try to select it, you can see that this subtitle has been updated. So basically you can provide the context to your data components yourself, so that you know which one you should select and get the right data in your components there. We also made some changes to our data container concerning our authentication profile and model data. These are not supposed to be used simultaneously within the same component. And this was resulting in unwanted behavior and quite frankly bugs and confusion. So what we did is we made some changes to the data container that when it is selecting a model, then the authentication profile will be hidden. And when the authentication profile is selected, the model will be hidden. So that's more clear that you should not use those simultaneously to prevent confusion and bugs. I actually, let's continue actually. What we also worked on is our autocomplete component. This is a bit similar to our data component. We want to make it easier to use, make it more scoped on certain use cases, because due to the complexity of this component, it had a lot of options that actually made the component do different functionalities, but combining these options resulted in unwanted behavior and bugs. So what we did is we split up these components into more specific use cases and gave them the options available there, so you could not mix up those options and make it more no-code friendly. And while we picked this up, we also did some update on our error validation, which I will show you in the demo right now. So here I have my page. And as you can see here, I have a single value. So what this means is that you will only be able to submit a single value to your form, for instance, and you are not able to simultaneously configure it to send multiple values, which makes it easier to maintain and also more clear on what it's used for. And then we also have the custom. This is for the people that are more familiar with this component, was being used with the free solo option, but the combination of that option with the other options was, well, resulting in unwanted behavior. So this is well, refactored and made a lot simpler. And the validation, what it looks like is the following. So previously, when you would submit a form that had multiple autocompletes on it, it would only show the validation error on the first component. And now it works similar to the other components, so that, well, the UX is the same, and it shows that all of these are required and not just the first one. So small tweaks, but just to increase, well, how they are being used and make it easier to use them. Then another very important feature that we added is dynamic partials. So what we did is that we now allow builders to create input variables on our partials. And this was not possible before. And you can use this in different ways. First of all, you can use your record ID to dynamically load in data with your data container within those partial components. Bear with me. And we have also exposed, so when you create those input variables, we will also expose an option within that partial component. I'll show you that in a second as well. And you can pass values from the context of your page to this partial component. And this all sounds relatively difficult, but when you start using it, it's actually quite nice. So let me show you what that looks like. So I have set up 2 pages, relatively easy. So say I have one page where I have a dashboard of rockets, and if I delete that rocket, then I want to show a success notification. Now this success notification has been made into a partial, and that means that when I update this partial, then it reflects the same on different pages. But I want to show that I have deleted a rocket in this case, and on my other page, I have specified that I will delete parts. So rocket part, and as you can see, this is the partial component that I now have selected. There's an option available where I can pass this value. And when I would now delete this record on either of the pages, it will show this dynamic value within the partial components in the runtime. Let me just show you what that looks like on the partial. So previously this button was disabled, and now you can navigate here. You can add a new variable. Let's, I don't know, demo. And when this is saved, and yeah, there we go. I go back to my partial. Then you can see another component option has become available on this partial component, and you can once again send additional values to this partial component to set up a nice and dynamic component. All right, let's continue.
In the meantime, just we got a quick question from someone. This is regarding to your second last slide. Is the multiple values component able to filter a data table?
Is the multiple values component able to filter a data table? Yes, it is, but that only works if it is showing the same records in that autocomplete component as the records that are being displayed on the canvas. So if you would have a data table, as you can see on my canvas here, and the autocomplete on the side, you can use that autocomplete to filter the records within the data table. What we don't support in that case is, for instance, being able to filter on the relational relational data within the data model. So there's certain, how can I say that, things that are out of scope for that for now. And I hope that answers your question.
Thanks.
So let's continue. We have also added keyboard navigation, which was a very nice addition during one of our innovation days. We allow you to select your next sibling, your previous sibling, your parent or your child components. And you're also able to delete or clone a component using the backspace or C key. So I've set up my inspiration page, which is one of our page templates. And what you now can do is there we go. So you can select a component. I'm thinking that maybe this is, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but it is not moving. And I can now use my keyboard to navigate to these components. And I can also choose to clone it, for instance, which instantly clones it. And I can choose to delete it, which would be with backspace, which still gives you the prompt, but you can press enter to submit this, and then your whole page breaks, but not sure what that is. Live demos for the win. But let's continue with what we're going to work on. So an important thing that we are working on is still styling and theming. And what we want to add within our components is the possibility to style your states. So that will be your base state, your hover state, your selected state, and your disabled state. Currently, the fact that this is not here is turning into elaborate workarounds, and this is just making it a lot more easy. And this is also required for when we're going to follow this up within our select components to improve our forms again. So yeah, this is like a requirement that we need. The first components that we want to introduce this on are our button, menu item, and list item. And this is specifically to make it more clear within the application which menu items are currently selected and active, or which page you are currently visiting. And then we are also going to focus on our new actions. So within the page builder, we have certain components that are creating an action. And we want to make sure that these are creating the new actions. Dennis will tell you more about this in his segment, which is focused on these actions. But we have set out certain milestones. First, we're going to focus on our action button. So what this means is that when you drag your action button on the page, it will still create an action as you've been, as you're used before, except it will now create a new action. This will firstly be focused on a pro coder, as they can already create their custom action steps and allow us to start gathering feedback regarding this. After the action button, we're also working on the model form. So this is similar to our current form, but from the page builder perspective, we're going to make improvements there for our form component and our input components. And one thing that is important to know is that we are going to introduce a switch, because introducing this new form that is creating a new action is not going to work simultaneously with existing forms. So that's something that is good to know and that you should be wary of. So these will be working sideways from the current forms in the page builder, and more information about that will follow. We are also focusing on our login form, which is also going to work similar as the login form is currently doing already on production, with the difference, of course, that it is creating a new action, and this new action will again be fully configured with the authentication user step, but it will no longer have to call a sub action and be connected to our old interface. So the reason we are doing all of this is we are working towards our fixing the broken experience within the IDE, and this is the best road to go there. That was all.
We just did get a question from Marcel. How does this compatibility of forms work? You don't ever use two forms inside of each other, right? Then what is the incompatibility exactly?
So the incompatibility in this case is that you are not able to put your V1 input components into your V2 form components. And the reason for this is that the current form components that we have within the page builder, they are creating our actions. But those actions are based upon Betty 5 actions, which is our old environment. And we are working towards resolving that and rebuilding our actions, which has performance improvements and a lot of other advantages. But these actions are a different implementation. And so we will create those actions, and those don't work together. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. That concludes the question. So we can go on to the next segment.
And that will be me. I will tell you everything about what we have worked on for actions. As Anton already mentioned, we are basically working towards a public release where Page Builder and actions are being integrated. So the last weeks were mainly focusing for us on making sure all the fundamentals are ready, because this will be a first public release. So in order to establish that, we made sure we have enough performance. So we really made sure we can handle a lot of requests and the platform stays stable. So that was done successfully. We have a good performance. We have a good stability. We know that the new actions environment can handle the required load. We made sure by performing an external security audit that your actions are also safe, by which I mean that if you run an action, you cannot reach the data or the actions from somebody else or from a different app. So we made sure all your actions are isolated and are secure. We also spoke with a lot of customers about how they work with actions currently. Based on that feedback, we made some changes to the IDE, which I will show you in a minute. And the majority of the work was basically in making sure that all the essentials were ready for the action steps. So because this is a new environment, all the steps had to be created from scratch again. So now we have a basic set ready. Everything is still behind a feature flag, but we are able to beta test at least a loop. It allows you to loop through a collection, a create step, which you can use to add simple records to a database. So no file support yet, no relations yet. Same goes for the update step. It's just a simple single record insert into the database. Authenticate user required for the login form. That's, I think, 100% done. So we are about to, release that by integrating that with the page builder really quickly. A simple condition step, which allows you to evaluate a checkbox or a Boolean, and then based on that outcome, execute other steps. We have an HTTP step, which lets you reach out to an external service, get a response, and do something with it. And the most powerful feature that we have developed is basically making the whole actions environment extendable, more flexible. So you're actually able to build your own steps with this. So Bettyblocks is not the blocking factor anymore. So if you miss a step, can be anything, a connection to Dropbox, or you want to sum up 4 numbers or something, you can create it yourself. So we made sure all the toolings and documentations around that are available. And the first test with this is also really promising. People are already creating a lot of creative steps. So we're looking forward to releasing this. I will show you briefly what we worked on in the IDE. We decided to keep the main look and feel intact, but we made some small changes. As you can see on the left side, the sidebar only now contains your steps. So these are recognizable. These are also available in the current Action IDE. These are new. These are basically what I mentioned, created by myself, so I can extend the steps in the sidebar myself. Variables, action variables and input variables. We got some feedback from clients, customers, saying that it's more logical for them to place variables at the start of your action. When you start, you want to define input variables or action variables. So it was more logical for them to place them there. So we removed them from the sidebar and placed them into the start step, basically, of the action. So here you can define input variables, action variables. We have the basics ready for text, number, checkbox variables. Collection and record variables are also possible, but still require some work. But as you can see, the UI is functioning already. And it allows you to create variables. Same thing goes for the action settings. They were also part of the sidebar. Again, based on user feedback and also platform consistency, we moved them to the right. In a separate panel, in there you can now change your name, description, and make it a public or a private action. And then the native steps. The native steps are basically the steps that we provide from Bettyblocks. So create record, update record. You are able to drag them on the canvas like you are able now in the original action environment. And basically the basic versions, they work as they should, and you can create records in the database and have the action executed. Same goes for conditions, loops. This is basically what we have done in the past few weeks. So these were all the essentials required to start with the page builder integration. So what are we going to work on?
We do have a question before you go to the next segment. Maybe nice to us. How is the compatibility between the old look and feel and the new one? Can the old version action keep existing while adding the new version action to an application?
How's the compatibility between the old look and feel and the new one? Can the old version action keep existing while adding new? Yes, if I understand you correctly, the old versions will still be available and they will still work. Also the old environment, the IDE, will still be available. But whenever you create a new action, this new environment and this new IDE will come into play. So also when you, like Anton just explained, we're going to migrate the login form, for example. So at a point in time this year, when you drag a login form onto your page builder form, then this new action will be created for you and you are in the new IDE in the new environment, making all the new features and better performance available to you.
Great, thank you.
I saw another question.
Yeah, there's another question from Robert Luiten. Is there a roadmap we can see regarding all the steps that will be made? Would love to use the switch step. Yeah,
a roadmap on switch on step level. We thought about it and we also made an effort to really build it. We have one available in draft, but experience learns that it's continuously changing. And I don't know if we expose that externally, but the webinars I think are a source of information for this. Because what we will be doing in the next weeks, that's more or less decided upon. So you can see more or less that as a roadmap on step level. And that maybe is a nice bridge to what we will be working on. Like Anton explained, we're going to integrate with the page builder. And we made, for the coming weeks, we have 3 goals. So first we're going to focus on making actions work with a simple button or a simple form. So the button is just triggering an action. And this is mainly for pro coders. So there are no steps available yet from Bettyblocks. But the pro coder can, like I mentioned, can create his own steps, can create his own actions, and he can use that button or that form to trigger that action. After that, the login form gets focus, so the authenticate user step will be available to everybody, along with a condition step that is a little bit more extended. So you can evaluate if a checkbox or a Boolean value is true or false. Based on that value, you can execute a different branch of steps. A simple create step is also being exposed to everybody, and it allows you to, for example, store your login attempts. So you can build an audit trail of when people are logging in, for example. After that, the focus is on the create and update form, for which obviously you need a create step and an update step. But in this iteration, we will focus on extending those steps with file and image support, relational records, for example. So a belongs to and a many-to-many. This will all be possible. And the condition step will be extended with filters. So you can see basically that this is the roadmap on step level. We're trying to publish a step in a minimal form, and then every iteration or every goal, we add more features to it. And the end goal is to enable everybody as soon as possible to use basic building blocks and build, slowly on every block more functionality. This is for actions what we are going to work on. And if there are no questions, then I can give the word to Manouk.
Hello. My name is Manouk. I'm the product owner of the data domain in Bettyblocks, and I will tell you something what we have worked on. So let's start with new roles and model permissions. we are changing the way you are managing your roles and model permissions. In the current situation, if you are building an application right now and you want to do something with roles, you go to the back office and there you can create, update, and delete roles. And if you go to the data model, then per model, you can set the permissions for every role by using true, false filtering or by using an expression. And we're gonna change this. So in a new situation, it won't be possible anymore to create or delete roles in the back office, but you can create, update, and delete roles in the new IDE. I will show you later in a demo. There will be one overview, and in this overview, you can manage your roles and you can set per role all the model permissions by using true, false filtering or an expression. So that's the same way, but just in another form. You can still add more properties to your role model. And if you want to add some information, you can still do that in the back office. But managing, so creating and deleting the roles won't be possible in the back office anymore, but this will be done in the new IDE. I will show you a little demo of this. So here you see an overview of the new roles and permissions. So here on the left side, you see a list of all the roles I have in my application. I can click here, add, and add a new role. And here I can also choose to rename the role or to delete the role. And then per role, I can see an overview of all the data models in my application and then set all the permissions by using true, false filtering and expression. And for the new data model IDE, we are working on this at the moment. Users have to switch between environments sometimes, and we want to improve this user experience. So in the current situation, you can already do a lot in the new data model IDE. So if you're working in your application, you will see this new environment a lot already. You can view all your models in the list or schema view. You can create, update, delete models, properties, and relations, and you can set up your data sources. But for some features, you still have to switch to the old environment, for example, for these permissions, or to create, update, delete some property types, such as auto increment or multi-file properties. So that is something that will change. So the model permissions, the auto increment property, and the multi-image property, they will be available in the new IDE. And what will change is that if you are you will be redirected to the new IDE all the time. So if you are in the old environment and you click on the data model icon in the builder bar, you will go to the new IDE, and of course also from the new IDE. And just for some features, there will be a backdoor to the old environment, but as a user, you will work in the new environment most of the time. We will release it in two parts. First, we will release this for new apps only. We will do this, we expect to do this at the end of Q1. For new apps only, so all the existing apps will stay the same. If you create a new app, you will see this new release. And we do this first to gather some feedback and to create even more new features in a new IDE. And then after a while, we release it for all the apps, so also the existing ones. I don't have a timeline for you yet, but of course, I will make sure you get an update in time and get all the information you need to know about this release. That's it for data. If there are any questions, I will answer them in the chats because of time.
Yes, great. There are no questions, so Dusty can continue.
All right, thanks very much, Odin. Thanks, Manuk. So jumping back in for onboarding and engagement, I've got a couple of quick updates for everyone. Again, like our previous updates, if you're working in the platform or regularly use it, you're probably already aware of these. but let's just go through them quickly. We have activated the PDM, or the private data mode, for all existing sandboxes across applications. The impact of this is, as most of you will be aware, this will set your sandboxes to private, meaning users without builder rights or permissions within that sandbox will not be able to view the data API in the runtime. If you do have use cases where a sandbox needs to be used as a demo or a test environment where you need external users, of course, as you see in the GIF, you can just head over to your sandbox settings under the advanced heading, turn off private data mode, and you'll be good to go as normal. Then when setting an application live, so if you're turning an application from development state to live, it is now required to enter your SMTP or mandrel information before the application can go live fully. This is primarily because before there was a case where applications were going live using demo settings of Bettyblocks, and it's important for your applications to be sending and receiving information or emails via the correct domains. And if you have mandrel, then of course being connected to your account helps with tracking. This can only be done by an admin, as applications can only be set live by an admin. But when you're doing that, just keep your SMTP settings or your mandrel key on hand. And then jumping into the third and final update, we've made an addition to the back office, or it's more of an old feature coming back. When a user is invited to your applications, they're now automatically added to your back office at the exact same moment. So for an admin or anyone with permissions, you can head straight into your back office, set up your roles, permissions, anything that you need to beforehand. And this doesn't require the user to be registered. So as soon as you invite them, you can make changes. I don't have anything to demo at the moment, but we do have one key update coming at the beginning of March, so please be aware. We will be activating private data mode for all applications in the development status. So if you have production applications, or again, as with the example of the sandboxes, we're using them as a demo, proof of concept, or for testing, please be aware that private data mode will be enabled by the beginning of March. To avoid any issues, just set your application live and you don't need to do anything further. It'll take 2 minutes and yeah, you'll be free from issues. Is there any questions?
There is nothing at the moment, so you can continue and give it to our last host.
Fantastic.
Yes, thanks. I will take over the sharing. So for the last part, I want to give you a short update about the control cloud. It's mainly about what we are working on, since we didn't deliver anything I want to share right now, but I want to give you a short sneak peek about what's coming up. The first thing we are currently working on is platform single sign-on. That means that you will have the ability as a customer to force all your platform users, so admin, builders, and members, to authenticate via an identity provider. An identity provider is usually something you already have inside your company, for example, Google, like we do as Bettyblocks, or Microsoft or Ping. And when we enable this for your as a customer, it means that the My Bettyblocks and the application IDE login flow will change, because at first we will no longer, as you can see on the right, ask you for email address and password directly, but we'll first ask you for email, and then based on that information, you will either need to provide your password still when it's not activated, or you will be forwarded to the identity provider, for example, Google, as you can see on the right. We're currently testing this first version ourselves and with the first customers. When there is more news about this on when you can use it as a customer, we will of course let you know. And then the second thing we're currently working on is role-based access control. And that's basically the ability to give you more control as a platform admin to determine and set who can do what within the platform. How would we like to achieve this? We will give you the ability to create and manage roles. A small example you can see on the right, where you can see the role admin and member as we currently already know them within the organization setup. When you have set up your roles, you can assign permissions to them, and you can say per role if they are allowed to perform this permission or not. And of course, as the last step, you are able to change the existing role of a member so that you can assign them to the right role and give them the permissions that it brings. As you saw in my previous screenshot, it's currently focused on 2 permissions, the ability to merge changes and the ability to change an application status, so to promote an app to production. And of course, later we would like to implement more permissions, but this is the first scope for the version we are currently building. And as you can see in the last bullet point, the development for this is about to start. So that was it from my side. I'm not sure if there are any questions still.
One question, yeah, for the SSO part. You mentioned Google, Microsoft, and one more that the person could not hear. Is Okta on the list as well?
Yeah, basically, good question. We have set it up in a way that we can integrate with any provider. So basically, if you give a certain information, we need to set it up. You can integrate with it. So Okta, yes, I've seen that one before. Is also possible. Good question. Okay, and I think that was it. So let's continue.
Yes, this is where I'll take over the screen for now. Thank you for that, Jordi. If you could handle the last question, maybe via chat, Jordi, that would be appreciated.
Yes, we'll do.
So for now, thanks everyone for joining us to this webinar. If you have any questions, just ask them via the Q&A functionality, and our hosts will tend to you. If you have any feedback on the webinar, please, we would love your feedback. So send it to us via webinar-survey.betty.app. I would like to thank all the hosts today for speaking, for talking. And then, well, the next webinar, I'd like to see all of you there, is going to be on March the 30th of 2022. Thank you. And, well, we'll see you there. And have a good evening.